Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your friend Damien Howard here. And y'all see it. I'm here with my friend Jarima. Based on the fact that we have committed all this month to focus on different topics that are dealing with mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. Jarima, I would love if you can just share with the audience a little bit, just a recap of all of the important things that we've been discussing this month.
Yeah, so we started off with just what is mental health and why is it important? And so we just had a conversation as to why we even started these talks. We then followed up with the stigma, right? Like, what is the stigma that's connected to mental health and why is it such a stigma? Not just in our African American communities, but even communities across the city. And then last week we talked about the truth about mental health and just what is it that it really means and what can we do to combat it? And so I've enjoyed these conversations. Many people have said this is like their therapy sessions. And so I'm excited about what Damien has in store for us today. I can't hear you. What you do?
That's absolutely dope. I'm trying to share this on my page too. And it's just like I never thought I'd be at that place in my life where I have technological issues. But I'm there. So, Jarima,
I'll take care of that part. I'm gonna do all the sharing. Don't worry.
I got a new group that I created yesterday. Parent Pandemic Hangout Space. If you can find that, Jarima, and share that to that space.
I'll share it there too.
You taking care of your boy today. Take care of your boy. All right, so yeah, we're gonna get right into this conversation. The topic, as you all can see right there below, with that question mark, is who can I run to? We've been doing this tandem, this tag team, this teamwork, namely clever characters and burst into books. And as we were talking about this, we came up with different topics. And as we were coming up with those topics, and they asked Damien, which one do you want to facilitate? What do you want your topic to be? And for whatever reason, this is where my mind went to. Let me give a little context. I think that it will be very helpful, or this is what I thought at the time, and that's why we're here today, if we could just kind of have some conversation concerning when I feel like I need a respite, when I feel like I need to take a break, when I feel like I need somebody to talk to, where are those spaces? Who are those people that I can visit? Right. So this came to mind, and my team, they affirmed me to say, yeah, we think that that's a dope topic. So that's why we're here today. Y'all, I'm going to stop talking because I have some amazing guests who are joining us in this space today. And the first guest that I'm going to bring in is my boy, David Timken. Let's get him in here, Jarima.
Cool. So before I exit out, I will be moderating the questions in the chat. So if you have questions for any of the speakers or any comments, put them in the chat box, and I will make sure that they come up on the screen, and I'll be facilitating the Q&A at the end. So again, as you are hearing all this amazing wisdom that's about to come forth, put your questions in the chat. We will get to them. So I'm about to bring David in.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Damien. Thank you for that intro. I felt like running into the room, but I was like, I'm already sitting here.
Yeah, it's like these virtual spaces that we're in these days. We're figuring out ways to be fully present with our personalities and who we are. So I love that little running intro that you wanted to this space. That's dope. So David, I would love just for us to adequately kick this thing off, for you to be able to just talk to like your practice, what it is that you do, and just kind of how uniquely that affords you a great opportunity to be in this space with us today.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you for alleviating some of my anxiety with your tech admission.
Yeah.
Certainly feeling old in the space sometimes, and tech is angsty.
Yes,
so
sir.
Leave that. I appreciate it. So my role as a school social worker is made unique because there's few of them, and hearing all the other topics that you've covered initially before this really leads up to that, and why we've put our own mental health aside for books is, I think, why we're where we're at right now. And my role as a school social worker is really kind of driving that that domain. How are we going to best meet the needs of our kids in our schools and their social emotional needs? How can we meet the needs of our families and also the needs of our teachers, which this situation that we're in right now has really shined a bright light on, that we need more of this type of service in our schools. I don't know if I answered that.
No, you answered quite wonderfully, and it really leads me into the initial question that I had for you. Right? Really, I think it'd be very helpful for the youth to be able to hear why your work is uniquely important for the young people at the school that you serve.
Right. I think that, you know, in the vein of like what we were talking about with the technology and all the things that we have coming at us, there's so much for each of us to be in charge of in our own domain. Speaking so that if my domain is social emotional feelings, emotions, conflict, then I'm the point person, then I can be one of the point people in a school for kids to turn to for advice and guidance. And not that it needs to be the only person. That's the goal, is to spread that and decompartmentalize it. Here, this goes here, this goes here. But you do have to have that hub of a person. In my experience in Chicago, mostly social workers are part-time, and thankfully in the near future that will no longer be the case, and we will have a social worker to work alongside a counselor and have more staff in a school that focus on social emotional functioning.
Yeah, that's dope. So even when we think of your unique role and how you talk about you offering that hub and offering that space that's unique for kids to have a go-to to discuss kind of social and emotional needs within the school, what do you find is just kind of your commitment, if you will, and or your value, if I can even state it that way, to the larger community? Do you find yourself oftentimes giving resources to the parents? Do the teachers even feel like, you know, you're a check-in that they need as well? Just the broader community, even in addition to the kids, what's your role there?
Yeah, I mean, I believe my role is unique in terms of the teachers. You know, I think having conversations, when I have conversations with teachers, I think it's by being a social worker and I say, how you doing? I don't always get the typical, oh, I'm good. A lot of times I'll get the story, how you're doing. And that's a unique skill of a social worker. We're trained and it is our profession to be able to listen to those stories and not feel compelled to save someone right away, or just understand that having that person to talk to is part of the process.
Yeah, that's dope. What about the families and maybe parents, other siblings, just ways that your services and who you are is providing value even outside of the youth in your demographic?
Yeah, it from a school perspective, it definitely ripples. I mean, and there's need everywhere, and the service of a social worker per se is a unique perspective, and not knocking anyone else. But inherent in social work, I understand that things are attached to processes, and that, and like I said earlier, I'm not looking to fix problems all the time. I'm looking to be there to process, to provide tools, be it for students, teachers, administration, parents, community members. I offer a lot of ideas and approaches that are not always readily available from everyone.
That wonderfully leads me into my last question. When we get to this place, last question for you, my brother. Mm-hmm. When we get to this place of, well, when you find yourself in a place whereby you feel like, man, these young people, these families that I'm serving, these teachers that I'm serving might need something, some type of intervention beyond what I have in my capacity. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to initially ask that question generally, but even we can think about that specifically right now. I can only imagine how your heart aches and how your heart palpitates as you're thinking about and wondering about, those youth that you had touch points with, however often you were in your particular school. I think with your situation, you're at your school every day, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so there were certain relationships that were forged, and now everything's different. So in this particular season and in this moment that we find ourselves in, how are you pointing people to additional resources, even outside of yourself?
It's what's the word? There's a word for it, but it's basically all virtual. Like a lot of, I'm putting a lot of resources. I spend a lot of time. I've set up, I've set up Google Classrooms for faculty, for kids, parents invited, and I provide those resources through that method. There's honestly, sadly, there's really not a lot out there right now in the normal times, let alone right now. But there is, this internet is a wealth of information and resources, such as this program right now, and really guiding people to that direction. So I'll just throw out, for example, I've put out 2 students with parents able to access this material. I've invited students to participate in guided meditations, and I've thrown that out to them, and so they get notifications in their emails, and hopefully I think their parents are as well. And I think, if we can do one thing right now, just slow down, take a deep breath, and just start to slow things down. I think we've been a society on a rush, in a race, and we've suffered because of that. And so the resource, I'm not trying to load people with it, but I'm just going to give this simple message. It's time to just take a deep breath, and pray that resonates, and I feel like it has so far.
Wow. What an amazing way for us to start off this time. David, very appreciative of you and how you showed up into this space today. Y'all, this is just Southside homie. I say it all the time. So it's Southside realities in my space, like this dog that is super annoying right now. At some point, I'm going to go drop this window, and hopefully that'll help. But David, thank you so much for being here. I know we got a couple of other guests that we're going to invite into this space. And please stick around. We want you to come back at the end.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna bring Erica in as I put my window down. Dog is driving me crazy. Come on in, Erica. Come on in, Erica. How you doing?
Hello.
Talk to the
I'm
people,
doing
Erica.
well. How are you?
I'm well. Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Sure will. My name is Erica Wortherly. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Jacksonville, Florida. I have a business where I provide private practice, counseling, therapy, and consulting. I have a page on Facebook called Teaching with Mental Health in Mind, which is like the focus of most of my work, which gives information, resources, and encouragement in regards to mental health directly for educators and those that work with children closely, as well as helping educators understand mental health as it relates to the classroom and the children that they work with.
That's dope. Call out that website again, Jarima, if we could. I would love if we can post that up at some point during the conversation. What is it again, Erica?
Sure. It's a Facebook page, Teaching with Mental Health in Mind. Teaching
with Mental Health in Mind. That sounds like so super like ideal, right, for this conversation that we're having today. I love it. It. A Facebook page, a virtual space, namely Teaching with Mental Health in Mind is amazing for this first question that I have for you. So specifically, as we're here with COVID-19, what have you found as some interesting virtual tools that are out there to help people to cope, to help people to manage during this unique time?
social media is a wonderful thing right now because people are not able to show up for groups, and they're not able to show up for school, and they're not able to show up for different things. So social media has been an awesome platform, whether it's specific pages such as mine or specific groups, which are not that easy, or not, I'm sorry, not that difficult to look up. And it depends on what it is, whether it's you're looking at something about depression, anxiety, PTSD, dealing with trauma. There's all different kinds of specific groups. They may be local, they may be national. But I've found that the groups are helpful spaces for people that just maybe say, hey, here's what I'm going through, or, you know, I had this challenge and this is how I overcame it, and people can encourage each other. And I think that's very helpful for connection, because people need to feel like somebody can listen. And it, you know, and even if it's not something that may require an appointment or specific treatment, you know, maybe somebody's just having a moment and they need somebody to talk to or chat with, and social media provides some of those spaces.
Yeah, is there anything else that you just kind of seen out there virtually, online, that you would want to raise up that might be interesting as people are thinking about what are some of those sources and or who are some of those people I can run to if I feel like I need help?
Right. So, in addition to teaching with mental health in mind, I also have parenting with mental health in mind, which I just started more recently because I had experience where I was working in a school and specifically working with children, providing counseling. My challenge, though, was I can only do so much with a child without having conversations with the teachers, without having conversations with the parents. So I found, you know, it became necessary where working in the schools is my focus, but I also need to help and equip parents with understanding where their child is, what they may be experiencing, and how they can also assist them at home. So that's, you know, one thing. There are several groups specifically that deal with trauma. And for a lot of people, especially if you already had challenges with anxiety and depression, this time is nerve-wracking, for lack of better words, because people don't know what to expect from day to day. And even though, you know, it's constantly changing, you know, to tell people don't watch the news, sometimes that's a difficult thing. To tell people don't watch, you know, don't get on social media and read everything is a challenge. So having specific spaces where people can go look up information, where they can kind of control the flow of information, is much more helpful. So, you know, in addition to like social media and things like that, you can go on YouTube, find videos. There's national organizations like NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and then SAMHSA, which is Substance Abuse and Mental Health. And they provide information that you need to better understand what you may be experiencing, symptoms, things like that, and provide tools and, you know, kind of guide you in a direction. So something as local or small as social media to something national, there's such a wealth of information that I really don't think a lot of people know how much information is out there, because we just don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, that's super helpful for you and Dave to both kind of raise up the possibility of us having a more clear understanding that, yo, something is going on right now, even if you might call it out to say something is a little off or askew right now.
Right.
And there's just resources right there at our fingertips. Oftentimes when I'm doing trainings, I hold up the cell phone and I'll be like, yo, you got a mini computer in your pocket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Put that boy to use to learn more about yourself, to go and get resources that are going to be helpful for you. So really appreciate how you were raising that up. Raise up that Facebook page one more time, just in case anybody missed it. We want to get all the goodness from that page. What is it again?
Teaching with mental health in mind and parenting with mental health in mind.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't talk to you and try to figure out if you already had those going, because Philip and I, we actually just started a group ourselves, parenting what do we call it? The parent pandemic hangout space, because we've been doing like these parent hangouts on Wednesday nights, and Jarima's been joining us, collaborating with us in that too. And we were like, yo, this is so needed. I don't even think we realized how much a unique and just open space is.
Right.
We didn't understand how important that was during this time. Parents are showing up, and every week they're affirming like, yo, we need more of this. This is a value add for our lives. So I salute you, Queen, for doing that. And by the way, you got like an amazing glow that's going on over there in Jacksonville. I don't know if it's something in the water. I don't know if it's something with the lighting, but it's looking nice.
Thank you.
I want to raise up one more question, Erica. And this really kind of reminds me a little bit of a conversation we had before. It was prompted by a conversation that you and I had last week. You said something that was super fascinating to me. You shared with me that many people don't know how powerful psychology today is, as far as being able to go to that website and even find some practitioners that can be helpful for us based on different spaces, based on different realities that we might be, functioning through. So I just want you to just kind of raise up that tool as we're thinking about who and or what can I run to get help. Talk about Psychology Today.
Psychology Today is psychologytoday.com. Very simple. They do provide, again, resources, information as regards to mental health and mental illness, but you're able to find people in your local area that are able to provide services. So that means that you can type in your zip code and be able to find a list of people within your local area that can provide mental health, counseling, therapeutic services, also treatment centers. It'll give you a list specifically, especially now, of the clinicians that are offering teletherapy. So, you don't have to necessarily go to an office, but you can meet with your clinician face-to-face through our use of technology, which everybody, I think, is getting more and more comfortable with. And it makes it more convenient as well, especially if you're kind of reluctant. You get a chance to do it virtually before you show up to an office. And so I think that that's one of the biggest things, is being able to find somebody locally. And then including Psychology Today, look at some of the local or community organizations, because there's several of them that do actually offer some mental health services, and they offer them for free. So it may not be affordable to pay for a counselor or a therapist at the moment. However, you may be able to find some community organizations where you're able to access the services, at least, temporary, within your community.
That is so helpful. That is so helpful, because when I was asking you that question and we were talking through it a little bit earlier, and you brought that up, immediately what came to mind are so many organizations that I know of that actually have therapists as a part of their organization,
right?
That all have, they manage cases. They're case managers,
right?
Different constituents or different populations that they serve. So, Erica, salute, Queen. Thank you so much. Right,
you're welcome.
Raising up those resources, because right now, as some people are striving to run to something, striving to run to somebody in need of running to some resources, you've really equipped them with some things that are now a part of their toolkit. We'll have you on again towards the end. Thank you so much, Queen, for your time.
You're welcome.
All right. So, people, friends, hey, thank y'all for sticking in here. Joann Chassman is going to join us in about 3, 2, and 1. Joann, hey, Hey, that reminds me of that prom video that went viral of your daughter Emma the other day.
That's right. Thank you, Damien, for having me. So just a little bit about myself.
Yep.
I have a private practice in Northbrook, Illinois, and I serve in that area at about a 15-mile radius in that area. My specialty is working with college students or adults and couples as well. and primarily in the areas of anxiety, depression, life transitions. And I've been doing it for about 17 years. I was, previous to that, I was in the radio and television business working with clinicians like myself. So it's refreshing to go back and be able to talk about mental health now.
Wow, that's cool. And just thank you for just providing a little context there. And even as you were giving that context, it really spoke to the initial question I want to ask. So I'm actually going to jump to the second one. Because what I was fascinated by when you and I were prepping a bit for this conversation today was I was really trying to push, Joann, who should they run to? These adults, even that you're serving, the people who might be able to watch this either live now, what's up, y'all, and or via playback. Like, who should we be directing them to? And what I heard you respond, which was so powerful, is you said, Damien, maybe we could really shift the conversation a bit and talk about some things that they can do within themselves to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. So I want to mute my mic and just have you to raise that up and talk to whatever kind of comes top of mind concerning that.
Sure. So how that came to be in working with college students is, for example, I would tell college students, go to your local health center and book an appointment there so you get the resources that you need. And they would come back to me and say, well, I've got an appointment, but it's not for another 6 weeks. And in the meantime, they were really struggling. So I really decided to change a lot of my shift to what can I do in the present moment? Because even when you do have access to a therapist and you do have access on a weekly basis, you need to be able to have some tools that are handy. And one comes with, number one, this is not easy. First, you have to go and number two, it's a decision every single day about how do I want to live my life? And so, because sometimes when I would kind of share the tools, they say, this is hard. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. It doesn't naturally, organically sometimes come easy for us. So in terms of anxiety and depression, what I recommend highly is that people go out and they move their bodies in one way, shape, or form. Because what I know is that a happy hormone gets secreted when we're moving our body. When we're going out, whether it doesn't have to be a big exercise thing, but we're going primarily outside and we're moving our body, then we get a whole different outlook on kind of what weighs heavy on our heart. And we're starting the day feeling more equipped to handle some of the anxieties or that plague us or our decision making. We just come into the day fresher. Number three is that what I sometimes we are directed to, if you're feeling anxious, is you just breathe, Sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't, because thought bubbles create anxiety. And we can't stop the thought bubbles until we ground ourselves in our body. So what that really means is, when we've heard the phrase, be in the present moment, that actually means, what am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I smelling? What am I touching? We're using our senses. So for example, as I'm sitting in my chair, how I ground myself is I'm trying to pay attention to the chair that I'm sitting in. So it's my sense of touch. So right now it's cool, it's kind of scratchy. So if I'm really grounding myself in it, the thought bubble starts to quiet down. The thought bubble that promotes a tremendous amount of anxiety. Like, what am I going to do when this happens? What am I going to say? How am I going to do that? How am I going to get through that? And we get worked up. But if we ground ourselves in our body, our anxiety will naturally go down. So it's a tool that we can use when you're sitting in your car and you're going into a meeting, whether you're a college student and you're prepping for a test and you're in your dorm room, whether you're going to have a conversation with your wife or your husband and you kind of just have to get grounded. Ground yourself in your senses and you will start conversations, you will start your day, you will start your test just what I call just being softer, just being softer. Bubble is quieter.
So I don't know if you were anticipating moving on to any other strategies or tips that you wanted to raise up, but I just really wanted to kind of tease something out a bit more here, because I'm even looking in the comments and folks with all caps are saying, whoa, that's powerful. And that's the exact reason why we have this space, and it's been erected and created just for that reason. We want people to get some certain strategies that they can apply that make sense immediately, that aren't super hard to apply, that can be transformative for their lived experience. Now, this is what I wanted to mention, and I think you can appreciate this because I know that your family is a sports family. As I was watching The Last Dance, the thing that stood out to me more than anything else, and I think this was in one of the last episodes, they said, you know, Jordan's prowess and his excellence wasn't even in his jump shot. It wasn't even in the fact that he'll stick his tongue out, cross you over, dunk on you, and then look at you on the way. It wasn't in none of those things. It wasn't in the fact that he can stay hanging in the air for seconds. It was in the fact that he had the ability, and here's your language, to be grounded and to be 100% present in whatever situation he found himself in. For instance, and most importantly, when it was game time, he wasn't mentally or intellectually back at home, right? He wasn't working through all of that gambling stuff that they were trying to throw on him. He was 100% in the moment and in the mode. And that particular documentary said that indeed was his excellence. Now, Joann, if I would be transparent and vulnerable, I struggle with that sometimes, right? Being 100% there, just knowing that, yo, this next thing is going to come up. That last thing came up and it kind of rocked me a little bit. So, you know, if there's any other thing, you know, that you would want to tease out or share about being grounded, the importance of that, or examples that we have in pop culture or just in general for folks who are uniquely good at that, I think that'd be super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're talking about, you know, being grounded, right? It's just your example of Michael Jordan was spot on, right? He didn't listen to the exterior noise, whether he was, you know, he made a decision probably every single day. How did he want to be? He, you know, even in the 1990s, he's got the headphones. He's literally not listening to external noise. He's thinking about how he wants to be, how he needs to focus. What is he trying to accomplish? He's also accepting that it's not easy. And so when some people are trying and they're like, I can't do it. You know what? I can't journal today. Journaling is another tool. How do I get my feelings out? I'm not going to see my therapist for next week. Journaling. It's almost, I call it like vomiting on paper. You don't even have to, it doesn't even have to make sense to somebody. It's just, you just throw out exactly what you want on a piece of paper. It could be a diagram. It could be a drawing. It could be words. It could be a paragraph. You're taking everything that is in your head and putting it down on a piece of paper. And it's just like, whew, and it just makes people feel as if they have a place. Oh, here it is. Like that, you know, it's like, oh, I just put it on my paper here. Now I don't have to carry this on my shoulder. I can just surrender it. Other tools that we use is faith-based organizations. Are you talking to your pastor or your priest? Are you making, you know, are you connecting with your community in which you have, if you can, again, not get to your therapist, are you using those other resources that are in your community in which you can have a conversation, that you can dial up your pastor on any given day. And that pastor probably, if he's pretty good or she's pretty good, is going to call you back that same day. So, you know, there's a couple more examples of, you know, how in the present moment, what can you do?
Yeah, super powerful and super helpful. Now, the next question centers upon the fact that a lot of people who are showing up to a space like this, even if they don't have the letters behind their name, they are kind of quasi-therapists themselves, people that just find themselves in a place whereby so many people have them as the person they call when they need help or support. And I'm just wondering, for people like that, for you as a therapist, clinicians, who do we run to? The person who fits that profile. who do they run to when they need assistance?
Okay. So you got to have a good team. You got to have a trusted team of people. Number one, the therapist has to really know their junk. When I say that, meaning like they really got to know the areas in which they are really good at and the areas that they struggle with, so that they are being responsible with the person that they are serving, as well as seeking guidance from a trusted other person. So it's, I call it, you shouldn't be an unhealed healer, meaning like you got to make sure you know your stuff, and then you utilize either your own therapist or people that you have, that you trust, that you can say, I'm struggling with this kind of thing. Can you help? Do you have time can you ground me with this right now? And so that just takes time in terms of your trusted, trust with people that you know.
Yeah. I feel like I heard you say, not only do you need to know your junk, but you need to be empowered to utilize that junk to actually live into your brilliance. If I heard that, it'd be great to kind of hear you tease that out a little bit.
Yeah, it's like knowing your areas of strengths and knowing when you need support as a therapist. So, and that's where I think, therapists have to just be mindful about the population that they are serving. For example, if someone came to me and they were, needing support with addiction, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about addiction. Do I know it? Yeah. But am I equipped like someone who is an addiction specialist? I am not. So knowing when you need, how can you really serve somebody well, and when you need to go, here, I think, this is where this other person can serve you best.
Wow, super helpful. So thankful for all of our panelists today. And Jarima, if everybody can come in. Actually, what's about to happen now is that I, for a moment, am going to be removed from the screen, and Jarima is going to take time and opportunity with everybody here to just kind of see if there's anything that we want to raise up that the audience stated during this time, or Jarima, if there's any just kind of follow-up that you have, let's go ahead and bring everybody else in. So thankful for how we spent this time together.
All right, so we are all about to come in, kick Damien out so we can have our own little talk. So here we come. Again, thank you all for being a part of this conversation. It has been super, super helpful for me as a listener. Most of the time I'm the one speaking, so it's been really cool to just like absorb all of this. And so I want to start, because I definitely have a question for each of you, but I will start where we ended. And so I really appreciated your statement about knowing your junk. And so I think that is also important for us within our own personal spaces. I know that some of us who don't go to therapy, we can tend to try to be therapists to our friends and to our family. And I just think it's just important that we understand what our strengths are in, right? And so I would say in that, I just hope that people caught that statement. And what has been, I would say, in your field, Joann, something that in some cases, like, how do you encourage people who maybe aren't ready to be real with their junk, if that makes sense?
In terms of the general population?
Yeah, like,
so, you know what? This is what I've noticed, is that people can burn other people out with their stories. Meaning, like, they say, you know what, I've talked to my friend and my mother or my sister, and they're not always the best friend, the mother, the sister, the father. They're not always equipped to support that person exactly what they need. That's why the therapist is helpful, because, they're not in it. They're not in their story, and it gives them, and they're unbiased. So that's why, it's best that you get someone who is on the outside who doesn't have an agenda, who's just there to help you help yourself. And so that's why if you're sitting and you're listening right now and you're like, oh my God, I've talked to my cousin for 5 years on this subject of why I'm having trouble dating, then I go, you know what? Probably you should seek a therapist to say, what are the obstacles that are getting in the way?
Exactly.
that it's preventing me to find a life of abundance of love. So that's,
I love it. I think we all could probably attest to talking to a few people too long. Erica, coming to you, I love your page, parenting with mental health in mind, along with teaching. And so, like he mentioned, we've been doing these parent hangouts, and it's been so pivotal for, I think, the people we talk to, because they're like, man, even my parenting has to shift during this time, right? So most of the parents we talk to, they're like, this is the most I've been with my child. And I think it's funny, like, this is the most I've been with my child in a long time, right? And so not only are the kids trying to process, the parents as well. And so I would love to hear your spaces, like parenting with mental health in mind. Like, what does that really mean? Like, as I'm parenting, how can I really keep that at the forefront? What are some of the tips that maybe have been shared in that space recently that parents can take to heart? Because it looks like we might be in here for a little bit. So I think just kind of considering what are some like tangible things I can even incorporate today in my parenting as we go through this time.
So one of the main points that I typically try and drive home when I'm talking to parents or teachers is take the time to listen to the children. Listen to what they're saying without correcting them. Take them as they are and let that be. A lot of times we're trying to fit them into what they're supposed to be doing, you know, because they're not following a specific direction or, you know, but just sit and observe them for a while and kind of follow their lead for a while. I think that is a help in getting to know and understand the children. Because and initially, you know, it's interesting you said that. Initially, the reason why I focused on teachers was because that's where the kids were most of the time.
Yeah.
My heart is for the kids. So being that they were in school 7, 8, 9 hours a day, that's why I put most of the emphasis on working with schools. But not neglecting the parents, because I know parents still have to parent, right?
Exactly.
But what happened is I wasn't able to find as much information regarding specifically for teachers when it comes to mental health, especially when it comes to, you know, teaching or even parenting, and you have your own mental health challenges. So it's not even, you know, say, for example, yes, this is the first time that you've spent this much time with your own children and you battle depression. How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Or you battle anxiety as a parent, and you know and then your child is doing something that's normal for a child, but there's certain things that child does that will aggravate the living daylights out of you, and you don't know why. That's kind of going back to dealing with your own junk. It's like, it's not the child. That's you. You need to take a step back.
Yeah.
So I think, just spending some time literally observing your children, observe their habits, observe their likes, their dislikes. You may notice that, okay, they seem really fearful at this time of day, or they seem to be more cranky this day of the week. And just observe and really get to know the kids, youth, teenagers, whatever the case, whoever's living in your house, really. Because a lot of people are spending more time in general together than they have.
Exactly.
Family vacations.
Exactly. And I think this is like perfect segue. And I love, David, for you to answer this first. And I do have my personal question for you. So this is from a listener. She said, can you talk a little about compassion fatigue and not feeling guilty for not being available all the time to people because you yourself need to recharge?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's real. I'm just thinking about how I want to answer that. It's a real thing. I think I'll answer it this way, the best way in a story, and how I learn to really let go, because I think as helpers, we take so much in, and we want to be that person that helps the person we're helping to the next level, and we take that home with us. And we need to sometimes just take some time and let go of things. And it's that old, like Emerson, if you let it go, let things go. And it's amazing what we'll find by just letting go of things. And it's all these things are easier said than done. And I think that speaks to what I was thinking as everybody else was talking about these tools and things that we have. They all are, they're valuable and they take practice. And I like that Michael Jordan came in here, because he became great because he had this passion and drive and he practiced. Focusing on the senses works, but you have to practice it. The more you practice it, the more you can go to it. If you're going to meditate and use a term like, and thank you for saying that, like just breathe, that comes after you've practiced it. If I say to somebody who has no idea what meditation is, just breathe, then it doesn't have meaning. But if I teach you to meditate and what is actually occurring in your body when you meditate, as with the grounding and things like that. So these tools that we're teaching others, we have to be proficient in these tools too. So that's then, and that then speaks to compassion fatigue. We have it, but we have to use the tools that we're teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to comment to that before we go to the next one?
Yeah, and I think, David, I think that was spot on. Compassion fatigue is a real thing, and I try and use truth in telling people about, in the people that I know, I'll say no to things, and I'll just say I need rest and renewal. And I just truthfully call it rest and renewal, because if I'm guiding others to have rest and renewal, to your point, I better make sure that I'm giving myself rest and renewal. And I just tell people this is what I need. And when, for example, if someone says, hey, can you be on this committee to do such and such? And I'll say, I need rest and renewal. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that at this time. And sometimes I'll say, I'm zoomed out right now. I need to go outside because I cannot handle another Zoom call. So I'm just really truthful with it. And, I would say, like, guilt is a useless emotion. All it does is to shame us into feeling guilty. And it's like, and again, to your point, it's practice. It's practice. And that's like, it's daily, a daily decision, a daily practice. What am I going to incorporate in my life today?
I love it. And they're loving that comment. I hear you, definitely, Erica, please share, but they're loving that rest and renewal. We got to use the tools we're trying to tell other people to do. So definitely add on, Erica.
And I completely agree. We're in a position where we literally have to practice what we preach. We do. We can't tell people. We can't tell people that they need to rest, that they need to say no, that they need to distance themselves from certain relationships and things like that. And we don't practice those things ourselves. One of the things I like to recommend consistently is make sure you set aside a block of time, daily, weekly, whatever consistent schedule you can have, where you're just by yourself. No kids, no husband, no boyfriend, nobody. And it's just you, even if it's just for 30 minutes. If you're a morning person, maybe get up 30 minutes earlier, and sometimes just sit in quiet or listen to some music or, do your exercise, whatever the case may be. But I think that, people sometimes need that alone time. We talked about the physical exercise. That does a lot for your mind, not just your body. It does a lot for your mind. So it doesn't have to be rigorous exercise. It could just be like walking your dog. But that's some time that you have to get your body moving and active. And I think doing those things, in addition to saying no, in addition to being proficient in the tools that you're teaching the people that you work with, you need to know how to kind of move a little bit slower. I think that's one of the good things about now is people are really slowing down. And I think that's helpful. And hopefully people are doing a lot of reflection and self-evaluation and figuring out, okay, when things do go back to whatever normal will be, what is it going to look like for me?
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the greatest gifts that we've had is time. And as I'll speak back to the compassion, it provided me dedicated time. I said, absolutely, I've wanted to do this for a long time, but as soon as I was locked in place, I was like, I am going to meditate for 10 minutes before I got out of bed every morning.
There's no excuse now, right?
It has absolutely transformed my practice, myself. And so just being able to make that time, and that has been powerful.
And just a note on that, when we were talking about resources as well as like Psychology Today, is there's a couple apps out there in terms of teaching you how to meditate, or if you put your earbuds in and it just guides you through a process.
One of my favorites is Insight Timer.
Okay.
And it has music, it has nature sounds, it has guided meditation, all different lengths. You can decide, like you can set it on like a sleep timer. If you want to listen before you go to bed. That's one of my favorites, just because there's such a variety of tools right there within the one app.
I use the Calm app a lot. They have nice like 7 to 30-day how-to. That's something that I've used. I've provided it to kids, and they're enjoying it. That's for sure. So the Calm app is one. Core is another thing to look into possibly. And that's a little more expensive. It comes with an actual tool that vibrates while you breathe. Those are the main two.
I use Breathe. That's a good one. Breathe is good. It has some COVID meditations on there. It also has things about goal setting. Again, a lot of these have the same, but just differentiating a little bit. It has anxiety, depression, weight loss. Happening on COVID wise. That one is a very good one as well.
I think all of this and I know it'll resonate. It speaks to the fact that where has this stuff been? If it's been around for thousands of years, how come they didn't teach me?
And I think that's a perfect segue for my question for you, David. And then we'll bring Damien in. I know he's missing the conversation. As we are being proactive during this time, I want to ask Erica the question about, parenting, following up about knowing our junk with Joann. For you being a school social worker, and I guess it's also connected with Joann, like what are some things we should be proactively thinking about as it comes to our kids, right? And I think about going back into the school setting, for example. What does that look like? I don't know. But also, like, I think social emotional services are going to have to be major increase and even helping, we used to have kids. I know I'm a teacher myself, and certain kids had certain minutes they met with the social worker, other had counseling. But even now during this remote learning, more of my students have been just like, man, Ms. Warm, I'm sleeping a lot more, or I'm, they're anxious. My seniors are really going through, it's a lot of things I feel like they're going to have to process from this. What would be one thing you would think school districts or things we need to consider as we're trying to figure out how to better online learning? How can we really speak to our kids' mental health?
Yeah, I think we all need to reassess priorities and move mental health to the top of the list. And I think parents if I could say one real quick thing, is just take a step back, and really evaluate what's important in your child's life. And is it that they're grinding? Is it that they're doing all their work? Is it can they have a conversation with you? Can they share their feelings and emotions? Can you have an open dialogue without arguing with them or judging them? Can you give them the space to tell you their story? It's in this time, it was interesting. I'll do another quick little story. A friend ran into a problem. His kids got involved in some like nonsense internet stuff, and he was ready to tear into his daughter for doing it. And I said, why don't you just let her do a pro-con list and just ask her to say what's the positive, what's the negative. And he came back the next day. He's like she totally did the list, and you were right. She knew that she had done wrong, and she knew that it wasn't a good thing to do. And he's like, she's bouncing around, and how many ways that could have gone so wrong so easily. And it's just simply just take a step back.
I love it. Well, I'm going to bring Damien in. He's going to bring us all to a happy ending. So, hello, Mr. Howard.
Hey, so I said it a couple of times, just super elated, and I salute each of you all. I know I have personal relationships that are different, but are special. And with each of you all here, including you, Jarima, my new sister, that has joined my life, I'm just super elated. One quick thing I just want to raise up. I heard somebody say it before. I wish I knew who it was. They said, never let a crisis go to waste. And the reason I wanted to raise that up is based on the fact that a lot of us have habits that have not served us well. We've gotten so many tools, so much good advice during this conversation, but it really has to be a decision that we make to break from some of those old habits so that we can start to apply these tools. Never let a good crisis, or never let a crisis in general, go to waste, because it's in those crisis moments when we get more flexible, we find new creativity, we find new ingenuity, and particularly with this pandemic, we have time. Don't let this season go to waste. Apply some of these amazing things that we've heard on this call, and all of us will be better for it. Joann, thank you for being here. David, Erica, Jarima, thank you for your co-facilitation. And until next time, friends, we will see you all.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.